Good morning and welcome back to Coffee and Commiseration. This is Kay Steinsip here. Thank you for joining me. I need it today, guys. Oh my God, it's day 50 post Palisades fire. Oh boy, yesterday was definitely like my hardest day since like the fires and when we had to leave. I mean, it's just a long slog, guys. And it's going to be like, I know that, and there's going to be a lot of ups and downs, but definitely I am in need of commiseration this morning, which is why I'm up early talking to you before my family gets up. We are in kind of like a new situation. So let me explain. We're temporarily living in Venice, which we very much like. Mm, At the same time, we're trying to get our house in the Palisades um, remediated, rehabilitated, whatever the proper terminology is, tested first of all to figure out what's going on, what's there, and then restored back to what it was, which is going to be a very lengthy process. We will likely need at least another year after we leave the place we're in, which is temporary. We've been looking for our next place to live. And it looks like the one we were hoping to get, it looks like that one is going to be rented to someone else for an obscene amount of money. There's this law that prevents gouging, but it seems like it's just not being followed. It seems like there's a lot of evidence of price gouging still in the market, and um, it makes it really tough. So we're trying to kind of figure out what our next move is. Meanwhile, John is in trial. And as I said, it's like that is just so all consuming and stressful. It's stressful, like even for me, it's stressful because his energy is just like he's enjoying it, I think, but also it's just it's like nothing else. A jury trial, it's just like you are eating, breathing, sleeping your trial. And part of me, if I'm being honest, um, is like thinking, wow, I'm running all around town driving these children, which driving, you guys, like I have a lot of things I'm good at. Driving is not one of them. Like if there's a job I should never have, it's Uber driver because I can't handle it. It's why I always worked at Bryan Cave because it was in Santa Monica, close to where I lived. I had other job offers that would have been more lucrative and more prestigious, whatever, and I would never even entertain them because I I had to work close to home because I cannot deal with the commuting and driving. Now I'm doing it like 3 hours a day. And it's not going well, friends. It's really not going well for me. So I'm driving the kids. And because I'm, driving so much, it doesn't make sense for me to come all the way back to where we're living. So I'm kind of just staying out and doing things I need to take care of. So while John was in front of his jury yesterday, I'm like, picking up his dry cleaning and taking care of issues related to the house, and which I mean, in and of itself is like all consuming as well. Um, and a part of me is thinking like, wow, like I used to be a trial lawyer too. And in many ways, I'm happy that I'm not dealing with the stress of that career anymore. But I also think about the fact that it didn't end on my terms. I didn't choose when I stopped working. It was cancer and cancer treatment and everything that's happened since then that made that choice for me. Life kind of dealt me those cards and I had to play those cards. So I do sometimes think about that. I'm super proud and happy and thrilled for John, and he's great at what he does, and he's like totally in his element, and I'm super happy for that. But I sometimes do think, wow, what happened to me? What happened to me? Because I was good at it too. And, I had a lot left in me that I'm now trying to figure out, like, where does that go? Um, where do I channel everything I have left in me to offer? And I think what I'm doing now is actually, more my calling. Like, I feel like I'm helping my community. Um, and, as much as I'm struggling with driving the kids, it's like Nate and I got in the biggest fight yesterday in the car, like one of the biggest we've ever had. Um, and on the one hand, I'm really struggling with this driving. And on the other hand, I'm thinking, God, what I wouldn't give to drive Molly again to school, even with the fighting, even with the stress, even with everything. I know it's just part of life and it's part of teenagers. What I wouldn't give to just do it again, even just one more time. So then I think about that, and then that makes me feel bad about the fact that, you know, I'm not appreciating all of these moments that I have with Nate and Eli, which is crazy. I know. It's crazy. We're all human. And I always hated that thing. Like, oh, the days are long, but the years are short. It's like, yeah, some days are really fucking long too. And yeah, it's a struggle. Like, we're all just living through these, like, extremely, extremely unusual, stressful times. And it feels like it's been this way for years now, like with the pandemic. Like, we all went through so much, and many of us just never fully came back from that. Like, I was talking with some of my friends, like, whose work was so impacted during that time, and it's never come back to pre-pandemic levels. And I think that's like underlying a lot of what we saw in the election. Um, I always have to bring it back to politics because that's like, that's my thing. It's in my blood. I can't, I'm always constantly reading about and listening to podcasts and following politics stuff. So, I mean, I really think a lot of what drove our last election was the fact that people just have not come back at all to where they were pre-pandemic. And it's a struggle. And we've just added more and more struggle on top of it. And I am really worried that those people who needed economic help are not going to get it. They're going to get the opposite of that. They're going to get their Medicare benefits cut. They're going to lose their Head Start programs. They're going to lose their veterans benefits. Like, these things, like, keep me up at night. I think about these things. I worry about these things. I worry about the climate. I'm super worried, you guys, just about what's going to happen with environmental protection. I mean, we were already on sort of a precipice with what we needed to do regarding climate change. And if we just don't do any of that and we say fuck it and we do the opposite of that for the next 4 years, what's going to happen? So these, it's like, I'm sure, like many of you, it's like I'm dealing with just what's right in front of me day to day, which is a lot. And at the same time, I'm also just thinking about these bigger societal questions about what happens with, these issues that I think are so critical. And what happens to people who need help most, and how do we come together? I mean, I'm just sort of like always pondering these bigger picture questions at the same time I'm dealing with kind of like what feels like an sometimes insurmountable amount of like stuff in my personal life. So as you know, we had an au pair. An au pair is like an exchange student. They come and live with you from another country for either a year or 2 years, depending on what you decide to do. The maximum they can stay is 2 years. And then they have to go back to their home country, stay there for a period of time, then they can come back again. So we did that after Molly passed for two reasons. It was like first of all, our house was just, it was built for a family of five. And we have this huge gaping hole, which is Molly, and having an au pair, having someone, a young female energy in the house, presence in the house, nothing can ever replace Molly, but it kind of gave our boys like a big sister, and us, like a daughter that we borrowed for a year. And that helped. And the other reason was for the driving, because as I said, I mean, when I'm driving, you guys, in LA, I feel like I'm playing that game Frogger. It's like I've never gotten used to living with the driving. I can't handle it. I'm anxious. I'm worried. I feel like everything is just popping out at me. Like I told my friend Leslie, and she always laughs. Like I'm like, there's so many obstacles in the road. It's like all this construction stuff, all these people, all these bikes, like all this. I struggle so much with it, and I know it's ridiculous, but I'm still like that girl from Fresno that is used to like no traffic, driving out in the middle of the vineyards to get to school. And my son, meanwhile, goes to school in Westwood in the middle of the most congested part of Los Angeles, one of them. And it's literally like hell to me. It's like hell's like fifth circle or whatever it is. I hate it so much. So we got the au pair because Eli was going to school in the Palisades near our house. Nate was going to school at Molly's school, Geffen, on the UCLA campus. And they were both either needing to be there or getting out of school at the same time. And I couldn't physically be in two places at once. So the main job of our au pair was to drive. So now that we don't have one, I'm doing all the driving. So that's sort of accounts for the big change. It's been very interesting for us having someone from another country live with us. So our first au pair, Alice, was from Italy. She was a second year au pair. She first worked for family in New York, then came and worked for us. We only considered people who were already living in the US, who'd already worked for another family, who already had a driver's license, because we needed someone who could really drive in a major city, no problems. So not somebody who's just brand new to the US. So we only considered those who were already here. So we got Alice. We had a great year with her. We're still really close with her. She went back to Italy after a year, but we had a wonderful year with her. Her father came out from Italy and spent 2 weeks with us. I invited my friends who are Italian to come over because he doesn't speak English, and my friends, speak Italian. So we had a wonderful Italian meal, family style, and it was just great. So when we went to Ireland on our family vacation last spring, I guess it was, Alice came and met us there and traveled with us. So we just love that. We love having a connection to someone in another place. And we love learning about her culture and sharing our culture and all of the things. So we wanted to get another au pair. So we matched with a young woman who was from Mexico, who was already living in the US, who was in New Jersey. Now, this woman was driving her host mother's car and got a DUI, which, thank goodness she didn't come to us, because obviously we dodged a bullet with that. So she was immediately kicked out of the program, the au pair program. However, interestingly, she wasn't kicked out of the country. So she, as far as I know, is still in the US, which I think is crazy and sort of an indicator of our broken immigration system. That, someone who was here only as part of a program that she got kicked out of is still here. But nevertheless, we obviously didn't move forward with her. So we were kind of we found ourselves with a short amount of time needing to match with someone else. So we matched with our most recent au pair, who was Qatar. It was a very experienced au pair. She had already done it for 2 years, then gone back to her home country, which is also Italy, and then come back for 2 more years. So very experienced au pair. She was actually already living in the Palisades, working for another family. But she wanted kind of more time to pursue dentistry, dental hygienist. So because I don't need much help, I just need help with driving, I was able to do that. So Qatar is originally from Morocco. She is a devout Muslim. She prays 5 times a day. She follows all, the dietary rules, and very sort of devout Muslim, which great. I totally welcome that. I want to learn from other people always. I want my kids to learn from other people. There's nothing like living with someone to really get to know them. So when we first spoke, I was talking about the fact Qatar is originally from Morocco. So she moved to Italy when she was young, and her family lives there. However, they still speak Arabic. They're still very much Moroccan. So when we first spoke, when I would refer to Israel and say, "Oh, we've traveled to Israel," she would respond and say Palestine, and I didn't think anything of that. I was like, okay, you say potato, I say potato. I mean, whatever. So she was only with us for like, I don't know, a couple weeks prior to October 7th. So then October 7th happens. And it happened that John and I both had COVID. And Qatar was driving Nate in Westwood. And while driving, this was right after the attack, so like October 8th or 9th. Westwood is an area, of course, where there's a lot of activity. There's a lot of protests. There's a federal building right there. It's just an area where on the UCLA campus and around the UCLA campus, there's a lot of protests, and it's a very urban environment with a lot going on. So some girls, young teen girls, were driving alongside them, and they were like out of their sunroof saying something about like fuck the terrorists, like supporting Israel basically, and saying fuck Hamas, who came in there and brutally raped and pillaged and murdered. So she then says, our au pair says, fuck you and fuck your stupid country. And Nate, of course, is like, he's a teenager. He's had his bar mitzvah. He's been to Israel. So he's saying, of course, in solidarity with the people who are saying, fuck Hamas. Yeah, like, I agree with that. So this comes to our attention. Nate tells me, and I can barely, even through the fog of my like COVID brain, and I was really sick. I was taking Paxlovid, but I was very sick. So we're trying to stay upstairs. I'm trying to keep them downstairs so they don't get sick. So we find out through Nate, something weird happened in the car. So I text her. She runs to my bathroom. She's like crying. We go downstairs. We have a family meeting in masks. I'm thinking, how do we continue this? Because it's a safety issue. My biggest concern, obviously, for my kids is safety, and especially when it comes to driving, and especially when it comes to driving in an area that I can barely stand to drive in myself, because it's crazy. Like, you can't yell at people. There's a lot of crazy people. You don't know what they might do. They might have a gun. God only knows. So that was my big concern. And, obviously we're Jewish, and like saying fuck Israel after Israel was just attacked and hasn't even done anything was of concern. So we have a family meeting outdoors in masks for us. And ultimately, she says she's so sorry. She understands if we have to rematch, and, she just was overcome with feelings and just said what she said. And, Nate was sort of utzing her, I guess, with his support for these girls. So we decide, okay, we're going to take it one day at a time. We were actually just too sick. I was too sick to do anything, to make any decisions. And John was saying, look, I've lived in the Middle East. I've lived in Israel. It's part of my soul. I understand you view it differently. Like some people, view politics differently here, and it may just need to be something we don't really talk about. And, um, basically, like if we can't get along as individuals, then um, what hope is there for peace more broadly between countries? And so we decided to just take it like one day at a time. I was not really optimistic, but I also was too sick to kind of even do anything. And I mean, people rematch for very minor reasons. I mean, just like, oh, it's not a great fit. I don't feel like I'm jiving with this person. So, I mean, rematching would have been very easy to do and totally, you know, easy. She would have easily gone to another family and we would have found someone else. So that wasn't a big obstacle at all. So we decided, okay, we're going to carry on one day at a time. And I will tell you, like, it really, she ended up being with us for 18 months. And I'm really glad we did it. It was not always easy. We had, definitely some differences, but so many similarities. Both like in terms of holidays and religion, and she observes the dietary restrictions for Muslims, so she eats halal food. So I would go with her to the halal market, and we would shop together. We would cook together. She can eat kosher food if we don't have halal. So I would I would joke with her that she made us more kosher because I would buy kosher meat because she could eat that. So we really, I mean, I think we all learned a lot from each other, and we grew very close. We had really strong connections. And I was, kind of helping her, giving her advice on her, well, not dating life, but because they don't date, but like she has been needing or wanting to get married. She's 28 and it's time for her. So we've been, talking all about that. I was trying to set her up at one point. I think she found someone else on her own. So we're very excited for her about that. So she just left. She just went home, and it's been quite a very interesting, year and a half since October 7th, with a Jewish family living with a very Muslim, uh, very strict religious individual who has a very different view of the world. And I thought it was so nice. John has been in trial and just totally out of pocket. So he didn't see her when she actually left. And I thought this was so nice. Like, she sent a really nice message to him saying she's really grateful. She's leaving with so many good memories and, all of these things. And he wrote, it was an honor having you, and I'm glad it worked out so well. You're proof that we have so much more in common than we have differences. And he said, only Allah / Hashem / God knows the whole truth and who is right and who is wrong. We as humans created by God must always remember that He knows best and He creates our paths for a reason. I wanted to say goodbye to you on Sunday before I left, but you had left with Eli. I'm sorry about that, and wishing her well. So it was a really good experience, and I'm so happy we kind of stuck together, and we are really going to miss her. And I hope now now we have two people to visit in Italy, and maybe Morocco, maybe a Moroccan wedding to go to. But it was really sweet. So right after she left, Eli texted, he accidentally texted me. He meant to text Qatar. And he said, I miss you already. It was just so sweet. And I forwarded it to her. I said, this was meant for you. We all miss you already. So, someone with a very different view of things, who just has been taught to view Israel in a certain way. There's my alarm. Sorry, guys. And I think we all came away with different perspectives and learning and appreciation for what we have in common. And I hope to all do more of that. So anyway, that's where we are. We are kind of moving forward now on our own, really for the first time in a long time. We're like a family of four. We got Alice as our au pair pretty shortly after Molly passed. So it's very strange to kind of just have four of us. As I said, part of the reason we had an au pair in the first place is because that is a very uncomfortable feeling for us. We aren't meant to be four. We're not meant to make travel plans for four people. We're not meant to sit at a restaurant and ask for a table of four. So it's just something we weren't prepared to even deal with, I think, at first. And now maybe we're a little more capable of handling that change, but we're also handling it in the midst of all this change with our house, and where we live and where we go to school. We're really struggling with the decision about where Nate's going to go to school next year. I have a real challenge keeping him at UCLA, given all the anti-Semitism that's taken place there and continues to take place there. So it's just a struggle, but he's a great kid and doing well in school. And it's hard to take a kid who likes school and is doing well out of there and move elsewhere. So it's a struggle. And if you're struggling, I am here with you. I woke up so early this morning because my, pain levels were bad. So it's like going to be one of those days that I don't feel my best, but I've got to slog through. I've got to go out to the Palisades, meet with all these people that are coming to inspect the house and try to figure out what needs to be done to it. But a lot of things can't be done until the neighborhood starts to be demolished and rebuilt. So it's going to be a day, friends. I know we're all in these challenging times together, and I'm so grateful that you came here to commiserate with me on this. What day is it? Wednesday? Thursday? It's Thursday now. I'm literally like just losing track of all time. I hope you have a great Thursday, and thank you for coming to commiserate with me, and I hope to see you back here very soon. Thank you.